Hey guys, I just wanted to get my thoughts out there about Joker. I saw the movie earlier today. I couldn't get the review out as fast as I wanted to, but here are my thoughts now. I thought the movie was pretty good. Uh, my only real complaint about it was that it started off kind of slow. It wasn't until about the midway point that it really started getting good. I mean, they had to do a lot. It was an origin story for one of the most iconic villains in all of comic book history. Joaquin Phoenix did a surprisingly good job. I honestly didn't think I was gonna like him as much as I did. It's already been reported that the movie's pretty dark. Definitely near that R rating. The cinematography and the way it was filmed was really nice. The music in the background was pretty awesome. They had a lot of surprisingly good actors in there that I didn't even know were going to be in it. I probably should have paid more attention to the trailer. But Robert De Niro, one of the actresses from American Horror Story, was there. Yeah, it was a lot of decent surprises. But yeah, the movie started off slow, but by the end was pretty epic. I know this movie's supposed to be a one and done, but I'm kind of hoping that it gets a sequel because it got really impressive at the end. Let's see what else can I throw in there. I'm trying to keep it spoiler free for at least the first few minutes of the video. Then any things I did like. They mix a lot of different storylines together for Joker from the different DC comics. The big one being the Killing Joke, and the origin story from there. It was heavily inspired by that. The Joker being a failed comic, his life kind of going out of control. Thankfully, a lot of that was obvious from the trailers. How was Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker? I'm sorry, there's no the. They only ever call him Joker. He's definitely up there. Probably right behind Heath Ledger. And like, this movie was heavily about mental illness as much as it was about the Joker. He already started off with issues, and it spiraled out as the movie progressed. It makes you really take a second look at what something you never know what people go through. You know what I mean? As for a final verdict, what would I give it on a scale of 1 to 10? This definitely is not a super exciting movie. It is not an action movie. It's definitely much closer to a psychological thriller. It definitely gets you thinking, and you see the characters go through a lot, especially in their own minds. I love psychological thrillers. Like, one of my favorite movies is Identity. I love Split. I like movies that have to do with stuff like that. You know, split personality syndrome and dissociative. I'd have to give it a 7. Yeah, 7 out of 10. Sounds about right for this movie. Would I watch it again? Probably, because with the way the movie ended, it makes me want to take a second look at certain things. But I'll explain that when I get to spoilers. I recommend it, especially if you like dark stuff like that. Just be prepared. It is a little slow. Good watch. I think the last half of the movie is definitely worth it. And if you guys are leaving now, I'll see you on the next one. Because now we're getting into spoilers. This is a giant spoiler warning. Anybody who doesn't want spoilers, please leave now. Alright, let's go over what actually happened in the movie. The movie opens up with that scene from the trailer with him dancing, dressed as a clown. and he's spinning a sign and whatnot. Sign gets snatched up by a bunch of kids. His actual day job was to work as a clown for hire for parties. In that case, he was advertising a store. The movie opens up with him chasing the sign, getting smacked with the sign, and getting his ass beat, and you just know he's not having a good day. He works every day, and he takes care of his mother at home. His name was Arthur Fleck, I think it was. I might be a little off on the last name. The way the movie opened up was already really sad. It just shows him sitting in the mirror, putting on his makeup just to get ready for work. And it's that scene from the trailer where he, tries to make himself smile. Except that while he's doing it, he's crying. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, what's this guy already going through? After his day at work, shows him get home, taking care of his mom. He meets one of the new neighbors. This woman who lives a few doors down from him with her daughter. She was another actress I recognized. Which one was it? Yeah. It shows him the next day, and this first scene that kind of grossed me out a little bit is it shows him without a shirt, and I don't know if you know this, but Joaquin Phoenix lost a lot of weight to play this role, and you see him covered in bruises. You could see his ribs, his chest was. And he's getting ready for another day, and he's telling the story to one of his coworkers about how he got jumped, and one of his coworkers is like, you need to protect yourself out there. This city's not good. By the way, if you didn't already know, it does actually take place in Gotham. I wasn't sure if they're going to keep it Gotham or make it a different city. His coworker actually gives him a gun and tells him, protect himself. And at first he's like, we're not supposed to have guns on the job. He's like, yeah, but, nobody's out there protecting us, so we gotta protect ourselves. So he keeps the gun. He gets called in to his work office. And he gets yelled at by his boss because of the sign. And he's like, if you don't return the sign, it's gonna come out of your paycheck. He throws a bit of a temper tantrum. I'm sorry, I missed the scene. The scene on the bus, he's riding on a bus home after work, and he sees a little kid staring at him, and, he tries to make the little kid laugh, and the mom gets upset, stranger danger, and he starts just cracking up, laughing, and she gets mad. She's like, you think it's funny? He's like, no, but he's still laughing. He can't stop, and he gives her a card. He actually has a condition where he compulsively laughs, regardless of how he's feeling. It was the first change that they made. Oh, sorry. So like anytime he gets nervous, he gets upset, any little thing that he shouldn't respond negatively to, he immediately starts laughing. It happens throughout the entire movie. When he gets called into the office, he knows something's up. He starts cracking up, and then he immediately stops and just goes stone faced, like he's. Alright. Comedy shows when he finally does it. And it was nice, a little love interest. But he ends up making out with her, goes into her room. And he just killed 3 people, but it seems like everything's gonna be okay for him. Kind of. He ends up finally doing his comedy show at a club. His neighbor ends up going with him, and he ends up going on a date with her. It's all nice. He leaves his mom for a while. Him and his mom watch this TV show together, where the host is played by Robert De Niro, and his big dream is to be on the show as one of his guests. He fantasizes about it. Well, while he's out, his mom actually has a stroke. Nope, I lied. I'm getting too ahead of myself. His mom does have a stroke, but that's after a part I missed up. I'm sorry. After his date, his mom ends up going to bed before him because he's still wired from the date, and he finds a letter. So one of the big things I did that was in this movie that I didn't realize was in this movie was the Waynes. Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, even little Bruce Wayne. I didn't know they were going to do this. It caught me completely by surprise, and I loved it. Because his mother used to work for Thomas Wayne some 30 years before the movie, and they were living in poverty, and she thinks Thomas Wayne's such a good man that if she sends him letters asking for help, he'll help them. Well, it turns out that the reason she was sending him letters was because she was trying to let Thomas Wayne know that Arthur was his illegitimate son and that he needed help. That she had something going on with Thomas Wayne 30 years ago, and Arthur was the byproduct. Arthur found one of the letters, and he spazzed out on her, trying to figure it out. She told him what happened. He wants to figure it out on his own too, so he wants to try and see Thomas Wayne. Well, he goes to Wayne Manor, and he actually ends up running into Bruce. And in his mind, that's his little brother. He's like, oh my god, I have a brother. So he tries to make him laugh, does a little magic trick. Actually does the smile thing to him because Bruce wouldn't smile. And he gets yelled at by one of the security guards, which makes sense. I mean, he's a stranger touching a child. But he's just like, I'm here to see Thomas Wayne. And he's like, well, you shouldn't be talking to his son. And when he basically explains to the security guard why he wants to see him, and he realizes, oh, you're her son. She was crazy. None of the shit she said was real. You're not going to see Thomas Wayne. So he basically gets kicked to the curb. He ends up following Thomas to a play, I think it was. It was either a play or a musical or something like that. This hadn't really caught my attention yet. But he ends up confronting Thomas Wayne in the bathroom and basically explains to him who he is. And Thomas is like, what do you want from me, money? You're not really my son. And he's like, no, I just want to hug Dad, some sort of affection. And he's like, your mother was crazy. She worked. And he sees a little kid staring at him, and he tries to make the little kid laugh, and the mom gets upset, stranger danger, and he starts just cracking up, laughing, and she gets mad. She's like, you think it's funny? He's like, no, but he's still laughing. He can't stop, and he gives her a card. He actually has a condition where he compulsively laughs, regardless of how he's feeling. It was the first change that they made. Oh. Sorry. So anytime he gets nervous, he gets upset, any little thing that he shouldn't respond negatively to, he immediately starts laughing. It happens throughout the entire movie. When he gets called into the office, he knows something's up. He starts cracking up, and then he immediately stops and just goes stone faced, he's upset, even though he was laughing. Let's see. So, there's a lot of filler stuff in there to show just how depressed he is. There's scenes where him talking to his counselor, and half the time you could tell she don't even listen to him. It flashes to a scene of him in an insane asylum. I guess that he had been hospitalized earlier in his life. Nothing really crazy happens until he is performing at a children's hospital. It looked like a bunch of cancer patients, and he was there to make them laugh. And he's dancing, and he's having fun, and the gun falls out of his pocket or his pants, and the kids see it, the adults see it, and it's just bad. He tries to pretend like it's a big joke and part of his act, but he ends up getting fired. He gets wicked depressed. He spazzes out a little bit. I mean, he loved that job, but he was already making moves to become a comic. he had a notebook where he would write down. He would use it as a journal. But he would also use it as where he stores new material for jokes. But he hit pretty low after he lost his job, and he was taking a subway home, still in makeup and costume, and he sees three drunk guys. Obviously, they were on the higher end of life. They were all in suits. They're talking about some girl at the bar, and they see another girl sitting by herself, and they start harassing her a little bit, trying to get her attention, throwing food at her, and Arthur starts laughing because he's getting nervous for the girl. So his condition kicks in, and he starts laughing. These guys, they start zeroing at him. They think he's making fun of them. That's when they start singing, sending the clowns, and they're like, he's something funny, and he's like, no, it's not. But he can't stop laughing, and he tries to reach in for his bag for his card to give it to them, and he starts laughing, keeps on laughing, and they attack him. They start beating him up pretty good. He tries to defend himself. He tries to kick them away. They end up holding him and start punching him in the face. And once he's on the ground, he actually pulls the gun out and shoots one of them in the chest. And then he turns, rolls over, shoots another guy. The third guy he shoots, gets him in the leg. The guy manages to run away, gets to the next cart. And when the train stops, he tries to sneak off the train without Arthur seeing him. Arthur finds him and shoots him, follows him, walks up to him, shoots him 2 more times. And it becomes a big scandal. Nobody knew who did it. All they knew was somebody with the clown makeup, or they thought it was somebody with a mask on. And because of who he killed, and the fact that they were, what's the word I'm looking for? Yes, the more fortunate of Gotham. The people started seeing it as like, is this clown a vigilante? Is this clown a hero? Is he, standing up for the little guy? Oh, excuse me. Again, I missed a part. I'm sorry. I should have done this right when I got back from it. Part of the reason he also got fired because he tried to lie about the gun, saying that it was a prop. But the coworker that gave him the gun said that Arthur had been trying to buy a gun off of him for weeks. It was messed up. He gave him the gun and then turned on him. Anyway, back to the present. While still in makeup, Arthur gets home, and he actually ends up knocking on that neighbor's door that he met at the beginning of the movie, and he just immediately starts making out with her. I guess he had been following her, and he got infatuated with her. She caught him, and he had invited her to see one of his comedy shows when he finally does it, and it was nice, a little love interest. But he ends up making out with her, goes into her room, and he just killed 3 people, but it seems like everything's gonna be okay for him. Kind of. He ends up finally doing his comedy show at a club. His neighbor ends up going with him, and he ends up going on a date with her. It's all nice. He leaves his mom for a while. Him and his mom watch this TV show together, where the host is played by Robert De Niro, and his big dream is to be on the show as one of his guests. He fantasizes about it. While he's out, his mom actually has a stroke. Nope, I lied. I'm getting too ahead of myself. His mom does have a stroke, but that's after a part I missed up. I'm sorry. After his date, his mom ends up going to bed before him because he's still wired from the date, and he finds a letter. So one of the big things that was in this movie that I didn't realize was in this movie was the Waynes. Thomas Wayne, Martha Wayne, even little Bruce Wayne. I didn't know they were going to do this. It caught me completely by surprise, and I loved it. Because his mother used to work for Thomas Wayne some 30 years before the movie, and they were living in poverty, and she thinks Thomas Wayne's such a good man that if she sends him letters asking for help, he'll help them. Well, it turns out that the reason she was sending him letters was because she was trying to let Thomas Wayne know that Arthur was his illegitimate son and that he needed help. That she had something with going on with Thomas Wayne 30 years ago, and Arthur was the byproduct. Arthur found this one of the letters, and he like spazzed out on her, trying to figure it out. She told him what happened. He wants to figure it out on his own too, so he wants to try and see Thomas Wayne. Well, he goes to Wayne Manor, and he actually ends up running into Bruce. And in his mind, that's his little brother. He's like, oh my god, I have a brother. So he tries to make him laugh, does a little magic trick. Actually does the smile thing to him because Bruce wouldn't smile. And he gets yelled at by one of the security guards, which makes sense. I mean, he's a stranger touching a child. But he's just like, I'm here to see Thomas Wayne. And he's like, well, you shouldn't be talking to his son. And when he basically explains to the security guard why he wants to see him, and he realizes, oh, you're her son. She was crazy. None of the shit she said was real. You're not going to see Thomas Wayne. So he basically gets kicked to the curb. He ends up following Thomas to a play, I think it was. It was either a play or a musical or something like that. This hadn't really caught my attention yet. But he ends up confronting Thomas Wayne in the bathroom and basically explains to him who he is. And Thomas is like, what do you want from me, money? Fucking, you're not really my son. And he's like, no, I just want to hug Dad, some sort of affection. And he's like, your mother was crazy. She lived years in Arkham Asylum. She adopted you and claimed you to be mine. Nothing ever happened between us. She was out of her fucking tree. Arthur starts getting upset. He starts laughing. Thomas gets offended and ends up punching him in the face. And he's like, you come near my son again, I'm going to kill you. So now Arthur doesn't know what to believe. But while he was out chasing Thomas Wayne, his mom had a stroke. That's what I mentioned earlier. She had a stroke. She ended up in the hospital. He's there trying to take care of her with the neighbor, who I guess is his girlfriend at this point. And she's, trying to be supportive. He's just trying to make sure his mom's okay. While he's there, he gets confronted by the cops. They want to talk to him about getting fired, and why he got fired. They talk about the gun. And he's like, it was a prop. It was part of my act. You should go talk to this guy. He ends up trying to send them at the guy who gave him the gun. He's like, my mom's in the hospital, and my mom had a stroke, and you guys are coming at me with this. He ends up going back to his mom, the mom's raw hospital room, and he sees their show that they watch, and he actually gets mentioned in the show, talking about a comic, and they show a clip of his act after he had that from the act he did. At the beginning of the act, he couldn't stop laughing, and when he finally got himself under control, he made a couple of jokes that didn't really land. So they were actually ridiculing him on the show that he loved so much. He started off, happy about it, and then when he realized what was going on, he got really upset. At this point, he kind of starts shutting off from everybody else. He kind of just ends up staying at home, doesn't answer his phone. I mean, his mother had a stroke. His dad wants nothing to do with him. His dream just got shit on. It was just, things were getting worse. He actually gets a call from that show, and I guess there was such a good response on his videos that they want him to be a guest on the show. So he gets all excited, he wants to go. This is the point where shit gets real. He goes to Arkham Asylum. I was like a little kid in a candy store when I was watching this scene, because anytime Arkham Asylum is mentioned in anything that has to do with Gotham, shit gets real. And he starts talking to a clerk trying to get the records of his mother being there. The records are there. Turned out she really was there. The guy starts going through the records, and she's like, she was hospitalized because she was delusional making stories up, she had a boyfriend who she was letting abuse her adoptive son to the point where he was almost killed. They found the son strapped to a radiator. And then as he's realizing it, he's like, you said that this was your mother? So he realizes that he's the son. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't release this. You'd have to come back with your mother for me to release these records. Arthur reaches in, grabs him, and rips him out of the dude's hand and runs. And he runs down the hall, he runs down the stairs, and he opens it, and he starts reading it. He sees the adoption records. He sees the story, what happened with her. He sees the last interview that happened with her. And it actually shows a scene of him listening to his mother tell the story to the doctors of what she believed was true, that Thomas Wayne made up everything, that the adoption was fake, blah, blah, blah. Turned out she was just actually batshit crazy. So his world starts crashing down. He goes to see his mother, and he's so angry about the fact that she lied about everything that he suffocates her. He puts a pillow over her face, and at this point, he starts realizing a lot of things. Nobody gives a shit about him. He doesn't know who his father is. He doesn't know even who his real mother is. He realizes that this laugh that he's had isn't actually a condition like his mother raised him to think. He describes it as the real him. Basically, things that would make other people upset, he finds funny. And he just thought it was an uncontrollable condition. Turns out he's just sick and twisted. So he stops taking his meds. He ends up getting into a funk, and he ends up going to his neighbor's house. Her door's unlocked. He sits in her apartment and waits for her. You hear her talking to her daughter in the background, and she walks into the living room and she sees him and she freaks out. And she's just like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" She realizes it's him, and she's like, "Your name's Arthur, right? You're in the wrong apartment. My daughter's here sleeping. You need to go." And again, click. Arthur realizes that this relationship that he's had with this person wasn't real, that it was all in his head. Just like his mother having a relationship with Thomas Wayne was all in her head. All the memories he had with her, of her being there, them talking, her going to the comedy show, she was never there in the first place. And this is when I was just like completely absorbed into the movie. It ends up showing him leaving, but it never shows what happened with her and him. And that was a big thing. I was kind of upset they left out. But he ends up going back to his apartment, and he starts prepping for his interview with the talk show host. I think his name was Murray. Something like that. Anyway, so he's in the red suit. It shows him from the trailer, and he starts going over it. And he decides he wants to change his look. Now, one of the things that's been happening in the background that wasn't really focused on because everything was so focused on him was that ever since he killed those 3 people, there've been riots in the streets. People have been going around wearing masks like the face paint he wore, committing crimes. Nothing crazy, just like protests, fighting the police, things like that. Well, he decides to wear full makeup, and he even dyes his hair green because they all wear all the masks they're wearing had green hair attached to the masks. Now he dyes his hair, paints his face while he's still in the middle of painting, and he gets a knock on his door. And it's his old co-workers, the one that gave him the gun, and the boss's assistant, who's actually, a midget. No offense to him. And this was my favorite scene in the movie. So, like I said, his hair's still wet from the dye. His face is all painted white, and then first thing I asked him, "What happened? You got a new gig?" He's like, "No, I'm just, getting ready for some stuff." He's like, "Why the face paint? You go into the rallies, the other people wearing the masks." He's like, "No, it's for something else." Anyway, they move on, and they start asking him. He's like, "I know the cops came and asked you about the shooting, and they want to talk to me now, and I just want to know what you said. I want to have my story straight." When he went to answer the door, he had slipped a pair of scissors in his pocket because he was cutting his hair. And he's sitting there, his hands on the walls. His hair is like hanging in front of his face, so you can't really see his face. But as he looks up, he just looks menacing as shit with the green hair. And he's just like, you know what? He pulls a knife out and just stabs the dude in the neck over and over again. Blood squirting all over him. And his other coworker's like freaking out. I was like, why would you do that? And he's just like, he had it. He deserved it. Just like the three in the subway. He's like, that was you too? He's like, yep. And the dude's freaking out. He's like, you know what? You can go. You were always nice to me. PSA, guys. Always be nice to your neighborhood psycho. Poor midget couldn't even get out the door because he had latched it when they came in. So he has to get up and let him out. Still covered in blood. Next scene, he finishes makeup. He's in the suit. And that's when it shows him going down the stairs, dancing and whatnot. Because he basically finally accepted who he is. The cops show up and they want to talk to him, and he just books it. They end up chasing him. He runs into the subway, and the subway is full with protesters wearing the masks. And he just starts running through the protesters, and the cops keep trying to follow him. At one point, they pull out their badge and they pull out their gun to try and shoot him. And the protesters are trying to stop them. And one of the protesters gets shot, and he fucking dies. And the cops get swarmed by all the other protesters, and they just get beaten down. Next scene, it shows a news report of them being in critical condition in the hospital. It goes to Arthur at the show, and he's talking to the host, and he's like, "You're gonna be on after this person. Are you sure you want to wear that makeup because the protests?" And he's like, "I'm just me being me." And he's like, "You know what? Screw it. Let's do it." But he's like, one thing, when you call me out, can you introduce me as Joker? Why? Because when you showed my video, you called me Joker. He took it as an insult, and he fucking claimed it. He goes on stage, he gets called out. Everybody's loving his look. He's dancing around and whatnot. He makes out with an old lady. So it all seems fine. And he sits down. He's just like, this is exactly what I'd imagine it'd be like. And the host starts making jokes. Tells him to tell a joke. He cracks open his book. And he's like, oh, he's got a book of jokes. He's like, knock knock. And he's already making fun of him. He's like, did you really have to look that up? He's like, I want to make sure I get it right. So knock knock. Who's there? It's the police, ma'am. Your son was hit by a car. And he starts laughing. And the old lady and the host are like, that's not funny. You can't say stuff like that, especially on live TV. And then his character dissolves. He goes from acting like a clown to saying some of the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. Especially in a movie. He starts talking about how he's like, comedy is subjective. What you believe is funny might not be what this person believes is funny. He's like, I grew up in Gotham, struggling, and nobody ever gave a shit about me. Until recently. He's like, I've had the worst couple of weeks of my life. Everything just started falling apart. And he lets it slip that he killed the three men. He's like, my life has been in shambles since I killed those three. And they even start talking to him about it. They start badgering him about it. And he's just like, they deserved it. They were scum. They didn't care about the little guy. Just because they went to school, they get to be treated better than everybody else. And he starts getting more and more worked up. And it gets to a point where he's just like, what do you get when you take a mentally ill person and throw him into a society that doesn't give a shit about them? And he's like, you get what you fucking deserve. And he pulls out a gun and he blows the dude's brains out right on his own show on live TV. The audience goes crazy. They run away. He walks up. He grabs the camera. He starts talking to the camera. And he gets tackled by the cops. And everybody goes crazy. The streets are on fire. There's riots everywhere. There's smoke canisters. There's people with masks running around fighting people. It was crazy. And as they're driving through, they have the Joker in the backseat of a cop car. And he's just laughing, looking around, smiling. And he's like, you think this is funny? This is all your fault. And it shows him get right up on the cage of the back of the police cruiser, and he's like, I know, and it's fucking beautiful. And that right there, the look on his face, the smile, the fact that he found the chaos so wonderful was pure Joker. And at that point, I was like, this is our Joker. This is the Joker we need right now. Right as that happens, the police car gets hit by an ambulance. A bunch of it causes a giant car accident, and then a bunch of people in Joker masks come out and they pull him out of the wreckage and lay him on top of the car. He's unconscious because he was just in a car accident. But other cops try to get to him, and all the protesters, or whatever you want to call them now, start fighting him off. And he comes to, and he stands up on top of the cop car, and everybody's cheering, everybody's grateful for everything he did. And he's like feeling himself up, and he realizes that his nose is bleeding and that his makeup's all fucked up. So he takes the blood from his nose and wipes it into a smile, and turns around, and he's like, all like, yeah, this is me, and he starts like dancing on the cop car. The last fucking thing that happens, I'm sorry, not the last thing, but the last thing as part of this whole scene that just blew my fucking mind, is it cuts to a movie theater where right outside of right next to where the protests are happening, right where all the fighting's happening, and it shows the Waynes leave the movie theater trying to get away from all the BS, and they go into an alleyway, and they get followed by one of the fucking Jokers, and he's just like, Thomas Wayne turns around, you get what you fucking deserve, and he blows away Thomas Wayne, and then he goes up to Martha Wayne, grabs her by her pearls, rips her pearls off, and shoots her right in front of little Bruce Wayne. And I was like, oh my god, it's the Batman origin story. And I was just losing it like a fucking little fanboy. And I was just like, I can't believe they threw that in there. They absolutely did not need to throw that in there, especially when this is supposed to be a one and done. And then they hit us with the biggest twist of the movie, because the next scene, it cuts to Arthur in a psych ward talking to his counselor. The counselor had been there a couple times throughout the movie, but it had ended up with her saying that their funding got cut so they could no longer see Arthur. Well, now she's there like she had been there the whole time, and it shows him inside in the insane asylum just laughing to himself, and she's like, what's so funny? He's like, I thought up a joke. So they made it look like it was on his head the whole time. And she's like, what's the joke? He's like, you wouldn't get it. But then next scene, it shows him walking out of the room, bloody footprints, like he had just killed his therapist. And then he gets chased by an orderly, and then it turns around and he chasing the orderly because he broke out of his cuffs. And the movie ends. So the big question is, did the movie really happen, or was it all in his head? Either way, the last half hour of that movie was flames. If you like psychological thrillers, go see this movie. If you like the Joker, go see this movie. If you just want to mindfuck, go see this movie. I really enjoyed it. And I'm probably going to go see it again to see if I can actually, decipher if it was all in his mind or not. That's the end of this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the movie. And I will see you guys on the next show. Bye.